Hello, Factorio fans! By request, we're going to do a Let's Play with Bob's Mods. I've broken this up into several videos that are a little more bite-sized and edited to focus on key parts of the game, usually when we're building an important part of the factory. Don't think anyone wants to sit around watching me play for 20 hours. This first video will take you through yellow, red, and gray tech, as well as basic electronic boards, also known as yellow boards. This video is up to date for version 1.1 of the game, and note that I'm using all of Bob's mods except a few ancillary ones, such as the clock and character classes. I'm also using 3 other mods. Flow Control, which offers some useful ways to manage fluids and gases. Bulk Rail Loader, which simplifies and speeds up the transport of ores by train. And Long Reach, because it's convenient. Okay, let's dive in. I've completed the early game and gotten basic tech up and running and electric power going. This is exactly the same as vanilla Factorio, so I don't think we need to go through that. We'll start from here. Our first task is to decide where we should put our main base. I like to eventually make a clean grid of basic substations to power my base. Each substation can be a maximum of 16 spaces from the next one in order to get that perfect grid. So I like to think in terms of the number of substations I need across and down in my base. My base design needs at least 10 substations across and about a dozen down. I look for a space that's wide open enough to accommodate that, ideally bounded by water on at least one side. You know, trees and cliffs can eventually be removed, and some water can be landfilled. So the fewer obstacles, the better, but don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. So I'm thinking that right in here somewhere is going to be a really good space for the base. Now this ore patch, maybe that one too, will get in the way. Well, again, have to landfill and blow some cliffs, but you know, this is pretty good, and I got water on 2 sides. To make sure everything's going to fit, I like to rough in the power grid using basic belts. So I make a circle of 4 belts, which will mark where the transformer will eventually go. And then I can go across 16 spaces, which is the maximum distance that they can be apart, and do another circle here. That's obviously 20 belts, 4 here, 16 here, and I know that I've gotten the spacing right because I can look in my hand and I have 80 belts left, so that's good. And then we can go ahead and repeat this. Yeah, this is pretty tedious, and it can take a fair amount of time, but I think it's an investment that's worth making early in the game. If you want a little bit of a shortcut, you can make a grid of 4 or more of these and use the copy and paste command to paste them in like this. Of course, they won't actually get built until we have construction robots, but they're still pretty good placeholders, these little ghosts. And you can be assured that you're getting the spacing correct as you do this. I suppose if you're really slick, what you could do is, from a previous game, import a blueprint of an actual grid of transformers, but I'm going to be my usual anal self and do this manually. Great, so the base fit really nicely here. I've got 10 substations across and 12 down, with some extra space down here below. First, I like to make a path down the center of my base. I find that I use this route the most, so we may as well have it paved. So I'm going to go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th substation here across and build a nice path down. Excellent. So I use a central bus system to move raw materials through the base. And we can go ahead and mark that right now. You're never going to want to make a bus system that is more than 6 belts wide because inserters can reach a maximum of 3 spaces. On the left here, I know that I'm going to need 8 belts, so I'll just divide it 5 and 3. And you're always going to want to leave 2 spaces in between the path and in between groups of belts to facilitate tunnels. So I'll go 1, 2 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And likewise over here, I will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I need only 7 belts over here. We will also need to move liquids and gases through here, so we'll use this space left over in the middle for that. Great. So I like to think of this main bus as the trunk of the tree off of which everything grows, and the horizontal spaces in between substations I like to think of as branches. So in Bob's Mods, we're going to do all of our smelting centrally here at the base. It just makes more sense for a variety of reasons. So we're going to leave this first and second branch at the top for smelting. We're going to leave the third branch across for moving what has been created horizontally down to the bus. And this fourth branch will be a combination of chemical processing for some of the smelting processes that require that, as well as moving some liquids and gases horizontally as needed. So I'm going to create another path here, which kind of divides the smelting area at the top versus the manufacturing area down below. Excellent. So we've got a good base layout here. Our next task is to smelt the basic ores, copper, iron, and stone, so that we can get rid of our temporary base that we set up early on. So let's start with copper. Each of these vertical spaces in between substations I'm going to refer to as lanes. So lane 1, lane 2, branches across, lanes down. We'll do copper in this first lane. So I'm just going to put some belts here, and I've brought my copper ore and coal down, so we can just plop a bunch of these guys down and get them working. One tip, in these early days before we convert to electric furnaces, you can go ahead and use burner inserters up here for smelting. We're already bringing down the coal, so they're going to feed themselves, and it saves you the trouble of having to put an electric grid up here early in the game. Okay, so those guys are going to go to work. We're going to bring this down and across to the main bus. You'll want a dedicated belt for copper and iron, and later in the game for aluminum. Every other raw material really only needs about half a belt. With 5 levels of belt, you can move a lot of materials very quickly, so there's no need to overdo it with our bus system, but copper and iron, of course, we do use quite a lot of. We're going to use most of this second lane for cobalt processing. Cobalt is different from other ores in that it isn't found out here in the map. It's actually derived from copper in an advanced smelting process. We don't have the tech for that yet, but we'll want to leave this space here in the second lane. So let's go ahead and do iron in this third lane, and it's basically the same drill as for copper. Plop some of these guys down. Some burner inserters. And I've got my ore and my coal coming down this way. And likewise, we will bring it down. Cobalt actually won't take up this entire second lane, so we can go ahead and slip a little stone smelting in here. And I'm going to use the magic of movie editing to move this forward. Hey, it worked. Good. Now it's time to put some tech labs down and move tech down here to the main base. I tend to put technology on the left here and cards and boards on the right side of my base, but you can organize it any way you want. You'll want to leave space for 2 belts on either side of any of the tech labs because there are 8 tech types in Bob's Mods. And we'll just plop down 5 of these guys. That should do it for now. Great. I brought power down from my main power plant, which is just steam turbines fed by coal at this point. So let's get some yellow tech in here. Build this across. It's a good idea to overplan a little bit as you're building these things. What I mean by that is, for example, I'm going to put 2 gear manufacturers here, even though I really only need 1. Just because I know that as the game progresses, I'll be expanding it. So these guys feed this. And these guys will feed the manufacturers here. Okay, so these will be my yellow tech. And these will be my gears. We will get some iron ore in here. Now with Bob's Mods, you can configure inserters by clicking on them. For example, here I want it to reach back 2 in order to grab the iron and then just drop it off once. You can also tell it where on the belt you want it to drop, but I don't care. I can drop it anywhere for this one. But for this one, I'm going to grab some copper, but I know that gears will end up on this bottom side, so I want the copper to end up on the top side of this. Good. And we just power everything up. Oops. Can't wait till I get my substations in. And it will start to produce yellow tech. And I'm going to again leave space because I know I'll expand. And we'll bring this over. Sorry, I haven't gotten the lights yet. Over to the labs. As my base grows and my pollution footprint grows, I've been clearing out any enemy bases which are being touched by pollution. This prevents them from attacking and distracting me while I'm building my basic base. For example, I'll need to clear this one soon. If you don't do this, you should make sure that you're putting down turrets to protect your base. I find that clearing bases is easier, but it's up to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some red tech. In general, I try to build all intermediate products in the same branch, such that the inputs flow from the main bus and the outputs flow out the side, kind of like a tree branch growing from a tree trunk. So for example, we'll need basic belts and inserters for red tech, which I'll build in this branch. And we'll need basic circuit boards for inserters, so let's build those first. We will leverage this copper and these gears for what we're doing down here as well. But I will add a second belt here for iron and wood. We don't have wood yet. We will get to that shortly. But for now, we can manually feed things. So Basic circuit boards require copper wire and wood boards. We can build these in this Special Bob's manufacturing plant called an electronics manufacturing plant. And we can do this in any combination or any way that we want. I'm going to do copper cable here, I'm going to do wood boards here, and then I'll have them both feed in here. It's better to use these electronics assembling machines because they are faster. You can see crafting speed 1 versus crafting speed 0.5. And they pollute less, pollution 2 per minute versus 4 per minute. So these are also scalable, they can get faster as we go, and they take less space. So they have all sorts of advantages to them. I actually did not discover these until many games in. I kind of ignored them, but that was to my detriment. Great. So these will feed our boards. We'll make inserters here, 1, 2, 3 spaces. We will make basic belts here, and we'll bring them out this way. Again, these layouts, these are my layouts. You can totally do different designs. You can play around with this if you think you have a more efficient design. Kind of designing these little tree branches is, to me, some of the stuff that's the most fun. Basic belts are easy. They just take iron and gears. Let's have them grab that. We want that to grab the copper. And we'll supply this with wood for now. In a second, we'll start to automate this. Okay, so we do this. I hate these electric poles. They're so messy. I can't wait to get rid of them when we get substations, but they're a necessary evil for now. Okay, these will make our inserters, which also take, iron and gears. Again, sorry about the lights. Let's see if we can plop a couple of these down. And these will make our belts. Great. And then I'm going to take them right here to this next branch to make our red tech. I do that because I want to save some space in this branch, because I can make things like basic tunnels and some faster belts over here. It'll just be more convenient to do it that way. And we'll zip this around and have it feed the other side of this belt. Great. Right now we're manually chopping trees and feeding our wood board assembler. We need to automate it. You'll need glass for greenhouses, which is simply smelted quartz. You can go ahead and do that wherever it's convenient. We do not transport glass on the main bus. Once you have enough glass to make a bunch of greenhouses, pick a good location of where you want to do it. I'm going to do it here on the far right side of my smelting operation, but you can pretty much do it wherever. The process is quite simple. Greenhouses grow trees. They need saplings and water to do this. Saplings are made in an assembler, and they're made of wood. So as long as we run our wood by here, we should always have plenty of saplings to feed a lot of these. Now I recommend that you overproduce wood. It's always nice to have plenty of wood around, and this will allow us to switch our steam power plant from coal to wood pellets, which generates a lot less pollution. So I am going to lay down 20 greenhouses, actually. Okay, 1, 2. Great. And we will output these guys in this direction, which will mean that all of our trees that get produced come this direction and go by our assembler. We will need water for all of these. Have conveniently brought water up here for this purpose. Excellent. So we will give these guys an exit. And on these, we're going to want it to reach right here, but to extend to put stuff in the greenhouse. We can click on each one of these and configure them, but Bob has given us a nice shortcut in this inserter configuration. If you check this box, enable inserter configuration mode, it will allow you to default how you want your inserters to work. It's a little confusing in that it's always pointing up in this box, regardless of the direction of your inserter, meaning if I want this to drop 2 tiles away, I need to put it here. But it will work even when you turn it horizontally. So if I go to all of these guys and click on them, we can see that they are now picking up 1 behind and dropping 2. Great, so fast forwarding a bit. I've brought in power. I have manually given my assembler some trees. It's now outputting seedlings, and we are starting to get some growth in these greenhouses. Great, fast forwarding a little again, I have brought wood over towards my main belt, which I will connect. I'm splitting it off here and bringing it over to the path that feeds my power plant over here, which is currently being fed by coal. I'd like to convert that to wood pellets. Wood pellets pollute a lot less and they're renewable, obviously. Don't have to worry about running out of coal. Wood pellets are made in an assembler. They're over here in the intermediate products. And I will bring some power over. And cut off the coal. Now as the coal gets used, it should get replaced with wood pellets, which are going to be a lot more efficient. Right, so fast forwarding a little bit more, I've started to smelt tin and lead. It's useful to have these on the same belt, as they're often used in conjunction, such as creating solder. I've brought these as well as the wood down to my main bus. I've also brought water over to the main bus, added a couple more labs, scaled up a little bit on the iron. Now I want to bring the wood over so that it will feed my wood board assembler. I'm going to use this belt here, the other half of it, to bring in the wood. So I'm going to temporarily delete that inserter. I'm going to use some tunnels to come over this way. And I'm obviously going to have to move a few of these over. More tunnels. Good. Now I can use an inserter here that will grab from 90 degrees off of the belt and plop down here. Now, I have to remember to replace that with a filter inserter once I have basic electronic boards up and running, but this will do just fine for now. Also need to make sure that it is on the right side of the belt, and it is. It's on the bottom side of the belt, which is great. So I am going to scoot this pole over and replace this inserter for iron. And again, it will reach over to and pivot 90 degrees to put that back on. Good. Are you ready? It is time to make our first electronic board. Woohoo! The yellow board. As I mentioned, I tend to do tack over on the left side of my base and boards on the right side. So let's come on over here to the right side. And here is the formula for putting this basic electronic board together. The key here is to kind of look for similarities, ways you can leverage stuff on belts. So for example, I know that basic circuit boards and tinned copper wire both need copper cable. Okay, that's good to know. I can probably leverage that. Both the resin and the wood board are going to use wood, so that can help inform my design just a little bit. I'm going to leave this first branch for kind of miscellaneous stuff that I like to build, turrets and train tracks and concrete and all that good stuff. So I'm going to start here on this second one. And let's just start with some basic wire here. I'm going to leave room for a couple of belts and an inserter. So we're going to start right about here. And we'll go 1, 2. This will be my tinned copper wire. Okay, then we need to output that. And then over here we can make wood boards. This will put wood boards and copper cable on the same belt, which will eventually go to make our basic card, the basic circuit board. And then I may as well put resin here. That's the only thing that can't be made in an electronics component, because we'll bring wood in like this. Okay. And then we can make our basic circuit boards here. Output the resin on the belt below, because that's eventually going to go for solder. Good. I'm going to leave a little space here so that I can expand if I want to. I find that a couple of these is going to be enough to get us started in the game, but I'll leave space for a couple more in case we need to expand. We also need basic electronic components. That's what this tinned wire is for. So I'm going to output the tinned wire up here. I only need to bring copper in this far. And I'll need carbon, which is made in a chemical furnace. So I'm going to have tin copper wire get put up on the bottom side of this, and we'll put carbon on the top side. I'll need to bring some water in here, but I'll do that in just a moment. Good, so this is where the ingredients for basic electronic components will come through. I'm going to move it down just a little bit because I want to leave some space for a couple more of those if needed. And so we will put a couple of these down here. Oops. And we might as well leverage this belt. I'll put these. So we have 2 of our 3 ingredients for our boards ready. We've got these circuit boards, we've got our basic electronic components, and now we need solder. So we have 1 ingredient for solder here, our resin. Now we need to make a solder plate. And if you remember, I mentioned that lead and tin often are used together. This is a good example of that. So we're going to come over here with lead and tin, and in this case I can use just a simple splitter. Oops. Bring these guys over. Nope, I don't want any wood on there. Okay, solder plates are made in metal mixing furnaces, which will be this one. Oops. This reach 2 down to grab those guys, and this will feed where we make the actual solder. Have the solder plate coming directly in, put the resin here. And that will come out there. So here are all of my ingredients. Again, I'm just going to leave some space to be on the safe side here, and these will be where we manufacture things. I'll have them head out this way. Oops. Excellent. Okay, let's go fetch the rest of our ingredients. First, let's do copper here. And that will require us to go all the way to the other side here. We will need tin and coal on this upper one, but I can't really grab those until I have filter inserters, which of course need these basic electronic boards. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. For now, I'm just going to give these guys some stuff to get started, and we'll do that later. We need wood here. Again, I need to remember to come back and make that a filter inserter. I'm going to eventually bring coal down the other side of this. Okay, so I have powered everything up. I have brought water in from the main bus, and we're starting to crank. Oh, I did not make these pick up 2 back. There we go. And now we're starting to crank out our first boards. Nice. Okay, it is almost time to make our gray tech, but in order to do that, we're going to need some steel. So as you can see, I have expanded my iron production over time, and I'm going to put steel next to iron for logical reasons. So I'm going to create a little offshoot here where I can grab some steel. We'll also use a filter inserter to grab a little bit of coal to power these for now. Let's give these guys a little juice. Great. Steel is made in a chemical furnace and requires oxygen. So this will be our chance for our first little chemistry experiment as well. So I'm just going to plop 4 of these down, which is probably more than I need right now, but that's okay. And we will use our default here to pull 2 forward. Great. And our exit belt. Steel will come down on the next belt in our main bus. Excellent. So, as we mentioned before, this 4th branch here we use for a variety of things, including any sort of chemicals that we need for our smelting. So oxygen is made by electrolyzing water into hydrogen and oxygen, but we need pure water, which means we need to run it through a distillery first. So I'm going to plop that right there. Oops. And I have my water coming over just like so. Great, so you can see it begin to make these. I will bring oxygen up. And for the hydrogen, we're just going to vent it right now. We will eventually use it, but this gas venting pump will be a convenient way to just make sure that this doesn't stop producing what we need it to. And here comes our steel. Okay, we have all the pieces in place to now make gray tech. Gray tech is fairly simple. Here's the formula. It looks like I'm going to bring iron and coal in on one and copper and steel on another belt, and then it's all very straightforward from there. So we can squeeze gray tech into the remainder of this space through here. Going to create a couple of assemblers for grenades, one for ammo and one for walls. Actually, the walls can come up here, and that will be my armor piercing, and that's pretty good. This will be iron and coal. This will be grenade, ammo. In general, you want an equal number of grenade assemblers as you do gray tech assemblers. I find that 2 gray tech assemblers is plenty. We don't use gray tech all of that often, so that seems fine. But if you want to scale up, you certainly can. That will be copper and steel, my piercing rounds, and my wall. Wall I can just grab off the belt and bring it over. This will become our second belt headed towards our labs. Which will mean we will need some new inserters that reach 2 back. Okay, I powered everything up and brought the raw materials in, and bingo, we are producing gray tech. I also created a couple of storage boxes over here to capture excess walls and ammo. We're going to make use of those, so we may as well store them up. I did the same thing for inserters and basic belts. So our factory is chugging. Well, congratulations. We've done everything we set out to do. We have created the basic tech. We've got our first board up and running, and you should be well into the tech tree by this point. I'll continue in my next video with blue tech and petroleum refining and red boards, all of which are pretty complex. Thank you again for joining me.